this video, we will be looking into the disappearance of Aaron Hedges. Many fans of the series Missing 411 may have already heard of this case, or perhaps seen it presented in the movie Missing 411 The Hunted. Because of this, you may feel as though there is no reason you should watch this video. But I think this video will be even more interesting and informative to those of you who are already familiar with this case, than for those who have never even heard of Aaron Hedges. My hope is that once I have laid out all the known facts, much of the mystery surrounding this case will be dispelled, and viewers will be better able to theorize about what may have occurred. Additionally, this video will be delving into the personal life and struggles of the missing individual. I never do this lightly. This information is only mentioned as it directly relates to the solving of what some would say is a strange and mysterious disappearance. You may notice some of the information presented directly contradicts what was shown in the Missing 411 movie. The facts presented in this video were gleaned from the official Park County Sheriff's Report, the Sweetgrass County Sheriff's Report, and witness statements regarding the incident. On September 5th of 2014, 38-year-old Aaron Hedges arrived at the Ibex trailhead in the Crazy Mountains with his friends Greg and Joe. Much of what we know about their hunting trip comes from the testimony of Aaron's companions. Their intention was to bow hunt elk as the Montana bow hunting season had just kicked off. The group were packing along one mule and one horse, and planned to leave by the 10th. 2 vehicles were kept at the trailhead with keys inside in case any one hunter made it out ahead of time. They began by heading towards Trespass Creek, with their intended destination being Campfire Lake, followed by Moose Lake, and eventually ending at Sunlight Lake. Only 2 miles into their trek, the group's pack mule started having issues, and Aaron lost his sleeping bag and some gear. The men spent some time trying but failing to recover the lost equipment before heading back to their vehicles to retrieve a tarp, blankets, and some items for Aaron. At this time, Aaron was described as being pissed off and generally uncooperative. The group ended up spending the night on the Trespass Creek Trail. By Saturday afternoon, the trio made it to Campfire Lake and set up a base camp. The first night there, Aaron slept by the fire and was noticeably cold. The next day, Aaron's friends could see that he was agitated about losing his gear, and he complained they did not have a good base camp for elk hunting. Aaron told his friends that he was going to hike to Sunlight Lake in order to retrieve a wall tent and a wood stove from a cache the group had hidden the year prior. The others were comfortable with this idea because both Joe and Aaron had Rhino 2-way radios with which they would contact each other at noon and when it got dark. Joe was able to reach Aaron by radio at noon that day, and Aaron told him that he was somewhere between Moose Lake and the North Fork Trail turnoff that goes to Sunlight Lake. Aaron felt that he had hiked around 7 miles that day, and he told Joe that he planned to continue on until he found the turnoff to Sunlight Lake. By approximately 4:30 p.m. that day, Joe and Greg were able to successfully shoot and kill a bull elk near the Dead Horse Lakes. Joe then contacted Aaron via the radio and told him that they bagged an elk and to start heading back. According to Joe, Aaron did not seem excited about their success and told them that he thought he might have passed his turnoff, adding, "I don't think I will be making it back tonight." This was the last time they would have radio contact with Aaron. Joe and Greg spent a few hours breaking the elk down and hanging meat before heading back to their base camp at Campfire Lake. On Monday, September 8th, Joe and Greg moved camp to Moose Lake and retrieved the elk. The following day, they returned to Campfire Lake. On the 10th, the group packed up camp and traveled back to the Ibex trailhead to go home as originally planned. Joe and Greg made it back to the trailhead, got into one of their vehicles, and began heading home. Joe told officials that as they left, he took his phone off airplane mode and received a group text from Aaron stating, "I will call you tonight." Greg responded to Aaron's text by saying not to contact him until he sobered up. and that he was upset Aaron did not help with the elk, but that he was glad Aaron was alive. The two men had never gone looking for Aaron after he left them at Campfire Lake. Joe then called Aaron's wife and asked her if she had heard from him and if he was still alive. After she told him that she had not heard from Aaron, Joe informed her that Aaron was missing and that she should call the police and file a missing person report. Authorities contacted Joe and Greg, and when asked why they did not go looking for Aaron, Joe told him that everyone had a clear understanding that they were going to leave on Wednesday, adding that Aaron had been acting loopy and agitated. He stated that Aaron was being confrontational almost from the time they arrived. Joe would also tell the police that his friend had a serious drinking problem and was supposedly taking meds to stop his cravings to drink. When asked what he thought Aaron's family life was like, Joe told them that he had known Aaron for 10 years, but lately he had been screwing up at home by drinking so much. When asked if they had been drinking on this particular hunting trip, Joe told police that they had been, and he was unsure if Aaron had any on his person. Joe informed authorities of the gear Aaron was carrying with him, which included extra clothing, a bow, a .44 Magnum handgun, food, and a cell phone. Detectives spoke with Aaron's wife, who indicated that he had been agitated and unstable on his feet recently, and believed this was due to a recent prescription. She explained that she tried to discourage Aaron from going on the hunting trip out of concern, but he was set on it. They contacted Aaron's brother Robert, who reiterated the same things Aaron's wife and friends had been saying, though Robert indicated his brother may have been mentally unwell. Detectives also spoke with Aaron's doctor, who told them that Aaron was prescribed medication to help curb his drinking, but that it should have been all used up by the time he went on his hunting trip. The search for Aaron Hedges began immediately and involved ground and horse teams as well as helicopters using FLIR and reflective light technology. Aaron's friend Joe gave searchers GPS coordinates to the location of the cache, hoping they might find Aaron in the area, but the coordinates were incorrect and not near Sunlight Lake. The first night of the search, a significant weather event occurred, bringing 1 to 2 feet of snow and cold temperatures to the area, hampering search efforts. According to the police report, on September 11th, Joe and Greg traveled back into the mountains to go to the Sunlight Lake cache on their own, despite the fact deputies had told them to stay out of the search area. They spent the night and were seen leaving the trailhead by noon the following day. A team of searchers would later locate the cache this same day. They photographed it and continued searching. After detectives learned Greg and Joe went to the Sunlight Lake cache, they called the two men in for an interview. The story they told detectives was much the same. They said Aaron was agitated and did not seem to be in good physical condition, and when they radioed Aaron to come and help with the elk, he informed them that he thought he had gone numerous miles too far and could not find camp, then saying he did not think he would make it back that night. The detectives noted in the interview that they thought it was odd the two men would ask Aaron's wife if he was alive when they called her, and then ask her to call search and rescue. Greg and Joe told detectives that they thought Aaron was already dead. When asked why, they said that Aaron was not in his right mind, and they did not feel Aaron had the skills to survive through the weather that was occurring in the area. Greg expressed frustration that Aaron had come along on the trip. He felt Aaron was unprepared as he was unable to hit a hay bale at 10 yards with his bow and arrow when practicing at the Campfire Lake base camp. Joe stated that he felt responsible because he knew he should not have taken Aaron on the trip. When detectives looked at Joe's GPS unit, they found it odd that there were no waypoints programmed in the system. As the white squares on this map show, the area is checkered with private property, and the waypoints would have assisted the men in staying on public land. Detectives also noted they were very vague and unclear on the locations they had camped at, and the location where the elk had been harvested. Officials never were able to find the camp locations, A witness eventually came forward saying they saw the three hunters on the first day of their trip and provided information that directly refuted the location of where Aaron, Joe, and Greg slept the first night. Detectives determined that Greg and Joe were either deliberately withholding information or providing misinformation regarding their exact whereabouts during the hunting trip. Searchers soon located an elk carcass that had clearly been harvested by hunters west of Dead Horse Lakes. They also found colored paracord on a tree nearby. The carcass was located on private property and dressed in the same way described by Joe and Greg. The elk was illegally harvested. At this point, detectives realized that Joe and Greg had been deceptive in describing where they had shot the elk. On September 14th, a group searching near the cache site at Sunlight Lake found an arrow matching the description of those used by Aaron Hedges, and another arrow matching the description of Aaron's friends. This further increased the detectives' wariness, as it did not match up with the locations Joe and Greg told authorities they had been. On September 17th, searchers found two small campfires in a protected area just off the main hiking trail. They also found a blue rubber camelback water bladder, a water purifier pump, several pieces of a cigarette carton with the edges burned, a pair of Wolverine brand Gore-Tex hunting boots, and a pair of waistband panels that had been cut off of a backpack. People who have seen the Missing 411 The Hunted movie may remember Sweetgrass County Sheriff Alan Ronneberg discussing this case during an interview. Many have gone on to contend that perhaps Aaron was walking without shoes from this point forward. I contacted Sheriff Ronneberg to see if he felt any details were left out of the film regarding Aaron's disappearance, and particularly these boots. This was part of Ronneberg's response to me. I guess the biggest question everyone has is about the boots left by the falls. If you are an archery hunter in this area, it is not uncommon to take a pair of sneakers or moccasins with you in your pack. Once you spot an animal, you take off your trail shoes and put on moccasins to make less noise while stalking. I believe this is what explains the boots where they were found. Anyone without shoes would not have been able to travel very far due to the shale that surrounded the area. Detectives later called Aaron's friend Joe back in to be interviewed and clarify some issues. They again confirmed the fact that Joe and Greg had not made any attempt to search for their friend. Joe told them that although they had pack animals, none of them were very experienced in handling them. Issues with their mule continued throughout the trip. When asked why they did not go to Sunlight Lake to look for Aaron, Joe told them that perhaps they should have, but they thought maybe Aaron had already gone back out the way they came and was ahead of them. Joe told detectives that before they left, they set provisions in an extra pair of slippers at the camp below the pass, in case Aaron came by that way. Joe then confirmed the items found by searchers around the fire pit were Aaron's. When presented with the colored paracord found at the site of the elk kill, Joe admitted it was his. He was then told that the elk was found on private property, and Joe said he would take responsibility for it. On September 22, 2014, the search for Aaron Hedges was scaled back, no further evidence indicating his whereabouts having been found by that time. On March 5th of 2015, Park County detectives traveled to Idaho Falls to re-interview Greg. His story timeline was consistent with what it had been in the past. He discussed Aaron's drinking problems with detectives, describing how Aaron was drinking while on the way to the trailhead and how he was acting out of it while on the trip. Greg said he knew Aaron was on medication to curb his drinking, but it didn't stop him from drinking while on the trip. Greg regretted not forbidding Aaron from coming along with them. Greg theorized, based on the amount of alcohol Aaron was carrying with him, that it was Aaron's intention to detox or dry out while on the hunting trip. Greg thought it may have been Aaron's intention all along to go off alone, get to the Sunlight Lake cache, and go through withdrawals by himself. but Aaron never made it to the cache. Greg was asked why he and Joe went to the Sunlight Lake cache a day after they came out of the mountains. Greg said that Joe was very ill at the time and coughing up blood, but it was he who insisted on going to the cache to see if Aaron had made it there. Upon getting to the cache, they knew Aaron had not been there. The two camped there and Greg stayed up all night listening to Joe cough and army helicopters fly over the area. They packed up and left the next morning. Greg denied having anything to do with Aaron's disappearance. On June 19th of 2015, local rancher Charlie Ryan was out fixing his fences with his father-in-law when they stumbled upon a bow, backpack, and field gear sat up against a tree. A hunting license was found nearby that had Aaron's name on it. An immediate search of the area only turned up a thermos and energy drink sitting on a rock. Aaron's gear had been found, but there was no sign of the hunter himself. Among the items found was Aaron's prescription bottle that still contained pills. On August 5th of 2016, guests from the Sweetgrass Ranch were on a dude ride that took them north onto the Billy Creek Ranch property. One of the guests noticed a skull on the ground, and Sweetgrass County authorities were called. Sweetgrass County then called Park County to inform them that they had found a human skull on a ranch not far from the location where Aaron's backpack was found. The skull was below a dead pine tree, and after a thorough search, additional bones, clothing, and a cell phone were found in the area. 40 yards from the skull was a location where all or part of the body was believed to have been buried by a bear. This location was south of where Aaron's backpack was found, indicating he doubled back at some point. A medical examiner would determine that no foul play was involved in the death of Aaron Hedges. According to Sheriff Ronneberg, Aaron's official cause of death was listed as exposure. While we cannot be certain about what happened to Aaron Hedges after he disappeared, we do have a lot of facts that give us clues to help form a theory. 1. Aaron's physical and mental state. Essentially everyone who knew Aaron agreed that he should not have gone on this hunting trip. Witnesses gave numerous descriptions of his behavior, including loopy, unbalanced, agitated, temperamental, out of it, and the list goes on. By most accounts, his home life was not good, and his brother did not believe him to be mentally well. Alcoholism and his medication seemed to be having a severe effect on both Aaron's body and mind, possibly causing Aaron to become disoriented. I spoke with a nurse who has worked with alcoholics in a detox unit, and she had this to say about Aaron Hedges' story and working with alcoholics in general. They always scared me because once they went into withdrawals, it was very difficult to keep them alive. If he was still drinking, since his prescriptions were gone, he could have gone into cardiac arrest. It seems like they had alcohol on the trip and ran out. DTs and delirium can run havoc on your mind and body. He was already irritable before he went missing, so I think that is what happened. Irritability is one of the early signs. 2. An untrustworthy narrative. Joe and Greg's description of where they traveled is suspect. Evidence was found of the two men's presence at Sunlight Lake, despite them denying they were there during the trip. We know they initially lied about where they were when they killed the elk. None of their claimed camping sites were found by searchers, and a witness directly refuted their stated location on the first night of their hunt. In short, we have no clear idea where these hunters went and when. This creates a problem where their entire story could be seen as untrustworthy. 3. The location of Aaron's boots. According to Aaron's friends, the last time they spoke with Aaron, he knew he had traveled past the Sunlight Lake turnoff and was traveling further down the Sweetgrass drainage. According to Sheriff Ronneberg, the fire pits and Aaron's equipment found near the trail were likely there before it started snowing. The snow may have covered these items, preventing searchers from seeing them earlier. Why Aaron left a pair of shoes on the ground, we cannot know, but it's entirely possible, and even likely, that he was carrying another pair with him. 4. The location of Aaron's backpack and body. It's likely Aaron was near the Rhine Ranch before searchers even made it into the Crazies, and before the storm hit. It's also possible that he didn't go to the ranch for help because he didn't want any. Sweetgrass County officials believed that Aaron had possibly made it to the Sweetgrass Dude Ranch by the very first day of the search. Unfortunately, they confined their search efforts to the west of the ranch instead of the north. If Greg's statements are at all correct, Aaron came on this trip to be alone and to go through alcohol withdrawal. Aaron's mental and physical states were clearly not ideal. I don't usually like to offer theoretical scenarios on this channel, but since people often ask, I'll offer one up in this case. What happened to Aaron could look like this. After Aaron separates from his friends and goes off on his own, he either misses the turnoff to Sunlight Lake or purposely passes it by. When he communicates with his companions, he tells them he believes he is between Moose Lake and the Sunlight Lake turnoff, yet he also states he believes he has hiked 7 miles. 7 miles from Campfire Lake would have placed him in almost the exact location of where his boots, equipment, and fire pit were found. He camps off the Sweetgrass Trail that night. The following morning, Aaron sees an elk from his camp and switches into a pair of sneakers or moccasins to chase after it, leaving some equipment behind at his campfire because he's in a hurry. He stalks the elk to the east, passing multiple ranches and houses scattered along Rhine Lane, until he comes to the Rhine Ranch property where he stops. He would have traveled roughly 14 to 15 miles since leaving base camp, and about 6 miles from the location where his boots would ultimately be found. Given that he traveled this distance across multiple days, it is by no means a great distance. By the time the storm hits, Aaron is already outside of the designated search area. Sheriff Ronneberg agreed with me when I presented him with this scenario, saying, "The fires, I believe, were started before the snow. I think you're correct in assuming that Aaron was out of the search area the first night." And this is a key point, for those who believe that Aaron was walking barefoot through miles of snow. When the storm hit, Aaron could have already been having significant withdrawal symptoms, while search and rescue was looking in the wrong place. This, combined with the cold weather and lack of a sleeping bag for warmth, could have led to his death from exposure. And this theory is somewhat dependent on the narrative told by his hunting companions. If the locations and times they stated were untrue, this case could potentially have an even better explanation. Ultimately, we can't know the exact combination of events that led to Aaron's death. Whether it be Aaron wanting to detox alone while subsequently being hit with a snowstorm, or something else entirely. The key to this case is the reality that there were numerous factors working against Aaron while he was in the wilderness. The combination of these factors should not make it a great surprise that he perished. These same factors should seemingly disqualify this incident from being considered a missing 411 case, because both addiction, or mental illness, and the possibility of voluntary disappearance play a part. When I contacted Sheriff Ronneberg, he summed up Aaron's disappearance and death as this. In a nutshell, Aaron was doomed after the first half mile of the trip. There were so many mistakes and poor decisions made by everyone involved. Each miscalculation accumulated and compounded to the end result. As unfortunate as it is, I couldn't agree more. Until next time, thanks for watching.